Yes, we are
Hello.
indeed live. Hello to all of our wonderful viewers. Thank you very much for logging in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We will be here. And I'm joined, as always, by Chloe Dobbs and Alex Armstrong, the gruesome twosome. And we'll be chewing the fat on all of the week's latest issues. Now, I have to start. First of all, hello, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. Hi. Is it you talking to us, Darren? Or are you talking to the
Yeah, you're
audience?
talking to
Yes, you.
Oh.
I am talking to you.
Hi.
I have to start with the demon portrait. Now, what do I mean by the demon portrait? Well, I mean this new official, the first official of His Majesty the King's reign, official portrait. Now, Breitbart have said, ominous official portrait of King Charles, pandas banal at best, satanic at worst. Now, I hadn't thought of it as satanic, but I noticed straight away Dr. Scholler, the race-baiting professor, immediately said that, it was an image that suggested it had some narrative behind it. And it does, to me, look like an activist piece. Am I just too far down the sort of conspiratorial rabbit hole? Or does this strike you as an activist piece?
I mean, it looks to me like Justin Boyle's just thrown paint all over it.
He got bored at the end and just said, fuck this.
Yeah. It's really awful, isn't it? I mean, you know what? I could see immediately, as soon as I saw it, I thought, do you know who's going to jump all over this? Narendra, Dr. Scholler,
exactly.
all those people are going to
I
go,
did too.
look, it's a bloodbath, it's a bloodbath, it's a royal bloodbath, this just shows the blood of the royal family's hands. It's like, how out of touch has King Charles and his team got to be to not see this before he publishes it? I mean, he could have done something really floral, like his love for nature and had a green, bushy background behind him with lots of plants and all that rubbish. Yeah. But he's gone for genocide instead, and it's such a bad look.
I mean, has he responded and said what the intention was here after all the backlash, or because it just does not make sense? I mean, they're clearly not very good at checking things, given that they couldn't check that Kate's picture didn't have half a hand missing off one of her kids before she posted it on Instagram.
Yes.
Oh, can I just say the funniest comment someone wrote, because I tweeted this picture. The funniest comment somebody wrote is, and I love Kate Middleton, just to put this out there, but someone said, has Kate Middleton stopped using Photoshop and gone to a blank canvas?
A blank.
That was quite funny.
The artist said, Jonathan Yeo is his name, and the artist said, in this case, my aim was to also reflect the traditions of royal portraiture, but in a way that reflects a 21st century monarchy, and above all else, to communicate the subject's deep humanity. Well, you haven't done that. You've made His Majesty the King look like Satan. I don't understand.
I mean, you know what these artists are like. You can take any ugly picture of any sort. They can just get a canvas and then just put one splat of paint on it that looks absolutely rubbish, and then they'll tell you all of these deep underlying meanings of it, and then put a price tag of £1 million on it. They'll just interpret it however they want.
What's so bizarre about looking at it is his face just sort of hovers there. It's like, it's just so weird. The whole thing is wrong. It's not a royal portrait. One thing it will do, though, is it will stand out amongst all the other official royal portraits, because
but I don't think that's a good thing.
No, I don't either. But with a king that's going to have a very, very short reign, more than likely, because he's pretty old as it is, maybe that's part of the plan, to stand out. I don't know. Yeah. Not be forgotten.
Well, I hope. I mean,
you're standing out for the wrong reason.
On and on. But absolutely, yes. I think it's a divergence from tradition in all the wrong ways. Why do we have to change everything? Why can't some things just change the same? Why does everything have to be modernized? I mean, this artist said, there reflects a 21st century monarchy. Well, why are you doing that? Just leave things alone.
What about it reflects a 21st century monarchy?
I have absolutely no idea. The butterfly on it is supposedly a endangered species of butterfly, and it's called the monarch butterfly or something. But I just thought, that's nice. It's all well and good. But as you said at the start, Alex, why not just do something on Charles's penchant for environmentalism? Actually, that neatly allows me to segue into the National Trust, speaking of the environment. Because I don't know if you guys have seen this, and if you haven't, don't worry, because I'll get it up here now. But the National Trust, a web page on the National Trust website went up yesterday, and it said, you can't see that, can you, on that screen there?
No.
There we are. I'll do that instead. It says a new project is improving representation in the outdoors by training 100 new walk leaders from global majority communities. Now, what they mean by global majority is not white. And they are making that point very pointedly in a way in which says, you know, I'm going to remind you, horrible white bigots that are paying for National Trust membership, that actually you ain't the majority. You don't rule the roost. You know, you're actually quite bad. You're actually quite evil. And you're not encouraging black people to go on walks around the country and stuff like that. So we're going to hire 100 leaders to come and teach you and tell you how you're wrong and all of these other things. And I just said, the National Trust strikes again with their racist virtue signalling. Global majority, really? Who knew that lumping everyone into that is white into one homogenous group could be so progressive? Last I heard, lumping everyone into one homogenous group was actually considered racism. I said, it's not just cringeworthy, it's downright insulting. But this is what happens when you try and score woke points without a shred of common sense. I said that they've managed to be both patronising and divisive in one fell swoop. And this is a really sad thing, and it sort of leads on neatly from the King's portrait, because what should be one of our nation's proudest and most respected institutions in the National Trust, actually defending beautiful parts of the country and beautiful historic elements of the country, is increasingly a woke joke that panders to the most divisive extreme elements of activism within Britain. And I feel so sorry for those that have dedicated much of their life to volunteering for the National Trust, only to be told that the colour of their skin makes them inherently bad people. Chloe, where do you stand on this? You quite like going out and about in the open air.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent so many hours of my life on National Trust paths. It's an incredible, respected institution, or was an incredible, respected institution for so long. It's loved by so many Brits, so many of them who will be white, I am sure. And as you say, many people, plenty of pensioners and old ladies spend hours on end volunteering for the National Trust, and for them to sort of be discredited just because they're white is absolutely bonkers. Now, I mean, this is clearly a response to that story we saw a few months ago calling the countryside racist, which was just absolutely insane. And the National Trust, rather than just seeing it as insane and forgetting about it, has felt the need to respond to it and do this absolutely bonkers thing. I mean, let's just stick to what you know, which is to make walkways accessible to anybody of every colour. There's no need for this positive discrimination, which is actually just a new form of racism, if you ask me, making walks that are specific for people of certain skin colours. Yeah, National Trust just needs to stick to what it knows. And I'm fed up of seeing so many great British institutions that have been so well respected and non-political being ruined and killing their reputation on the altar of woke.
Yeah. Alex?
You know what I love is that now I can say I'm a minority, guys. I am a global minority.
You are.
Not only am I a minority, I'm a global minority. I get double points. These people are total clowns. I mean, you know what? I just think there must be a committee of them. There's like a secret little committee somewhere in the depths of Shoreditch in London. They sit together and think of these new words to piss off white people and the vast majority of people in this country.
Exactly.
It's like, who is going to buy this? I can guarantee if you look at National Trust membership, it is 95% white.
Oh, yes, it will be.
I guarantee you're right. So who is looking at this going, oh, I'm going to renew my membership this year because I'm a global minority and I need to have global majority community leaders to talk me through the countryside, which I probably live near and live all my life near. It's so bonkers. It's so out of touch. Who is buying this nonsense? Are they doing it for the clicks? Are they doing it because people aren't renewing their membership? I don't even know where their PR teams are for these organisations anymore. I'm lost for words.
Well,
Lost for words.
Alex, do you think it's deliberate then? Do you think actually it's deliberate to because we have this rich inheritance that needs protecting and someone has to do it. That's why the National Trust was created in the first place. And actually that rich inheritance is put at risk if you end up alienating all of your activist and volunteer base, selfless volunteers. If you actually turn them all away from the institution, then you put that inheritance at risk. Is this deliberate? Like, am I nutty?
Well, it must be. There's no other explanation for it. Over the last couple of years, including English heritage, by the way, they've been just as bad lately. But all these trusts that are designed to protect and actually promote British society and British values are doing the exact opposite. They're pandering to a very vocal minority of people, and even people in global majority cultures, communities, don't really care about this nonsense. So it's got to be some sort of forced agenda. It has to be.
Global majority.
I mean, I kind of disagree, Alex, because I doubt that this is going to make them money. I mean, maybe they are very deluded and think this will make them money, and it's sort of a Bud Light moment for them. The people you're not going to have people renewing their membership because of this. You're going to have all of the white people, which probably makes up most of their membership.
It definitely does.
The people who are these sort of woke lefties that live in cities and don't need a National Trust membership anyway, I doubt they're going to be signing up just because of this. So this will lose the money, if you ask me. I think what's probably going on here is they are a charity and they feel like because they are a charity and they have charitable status, they need to be doing projects that do good for the world. And because of this woke agenda that's just spreading everywhere, this is what people are told is the right thing to do to help society, but it just isn't. They've been brainwashed in that sense. It's a great shame. And as you say, it might be the case that this is coming out of their, say, HQ in Shoreditch, who actually, the young people working there aren't actually on the ground and know what's going on.
Well, I doubt they'd ignore the National Trust if the Sycamore Gap hit them in the face. Do you know what I mean?
I do wonder if it's like a bunch of little old ladies who run the National Trust, and they've got a bunch of these young people who have failed at art school gone in and joined it because they have no other opportunities to get a job, and have gone, well, no, you can't not say this anymore. That's racist. And they've gone, oh, well, we better write global majority then. There's got to be a little bit of this play up to ignorance. I don't know. It's just so bizarre. I can't really fathom it. I really can't. It's just
AD
so
says
it's
on Twitter, AD, who Alex likes, a fan of AD.
I love AD. Big fan.
AD says ESG, so that's environmental, societal and governmental, and DEI, which is diversity, equity and inclusion. That all the funding for all that crap, and work with McKinsey and Company, all of these other things, they're what's actually driving this, right? So surely we have to just say this is coming from the top, right? The fish rots from the head. So you have to actually ensure that government says ESG, DEI, we're going to get rid of it all. They're not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, look, we know DE&I is failing. We've seen the stats. The stats keep pouring out. There's a reason why. I think who was it? One of the big consultancy firms put out this DE&I report years ago saying, it helps businesses. We naturally know that's now no longer true.
Yeah.
The facts don't show any improvement in business from hiring people from different backgrounds. The best thing you can do is hire the best person for the job. And so all of this nonsense is actually just completely counterproductive. But again, this isn't about improving their businesses. This is about gesturing. This is about virtue signaling, about appearing to be good. And that's the reality of it. Appearing to be good while damaging a business. Absolutely. Why don't they go plant a few trees?
Yeah, exactly. Devil's Advocate Extraordinaire on YouTube says, do you really think National Trust in Africa, a National Trust, obviously not our National Trust, in Africa or Asia would say such a thing? And I don't think they would. Would they be saying, we need to bring in minority white leaders to come and walk around Africa, to walk people about, to make it less racist?
I mean, you can bet your bottom dollar that this proposal was put together by a white person. Often with these things, people that they make up issues for other people that actually just are not real. If you actually ask the people themselves, they would probably find that there isn't an issue. There's this misconception, which I think sort of came about with this article we had a few months ago saying that the countryside is racist, that any area of the country that is, say, more white than London is more white than London because the people there are racist and prejudiced to any black person that comes for a walk there, which is just not the case. It's just different demographics. Typically people who are immigrants will prefer to move to big cities rather than to the countryside, and various other factors. And so I feel like this is a response to this sort of false narrative that's been pushed.
Yeah, exactly. And
do you know what? Can I say?
Yeah.
Sorry, just one more observation on this before I know you want to move on. But one more observation is this. But do you know what's clearly happened here? If someone's gone, the word minority is offensive. The word minority is offensive to me. I want to be called majority, or they should be called majority because globally they're the majority. And it's like all this nonsense. That's what it is. That's exactly.
Do you know what? Guys, I think that we should make a joke campaign, rights for global minorities.
Yes, I should.
We should. White people.
We declare that we need benefits for the global minority. Right. So I wanted to actually go on to talk about another institution that's failing and hectoring its people, and this time through a television show that actually, when it relaunched, well, put it this way, it's such an institution in my personal family that my mother grew up watching it, terrified by it, and I grew up watching it and absolutely loved it. And it's a television show on aliens and the galactic world, I guess, and it features Daleks and a certain doctor. Now, the BBC brought it back in 2005, something like that. And they had Christopher Eccleston, they had David Tennant, they had Matt Smith, they had a slew of people. And then things started to, more recently, over recent years, go a bit pear-shaped. And they brought in a woman. They said the doctor has to be a woman now. So therefore the doctor was a lesbian. And then they said, oh, well, the doctor has to be black after this, of course. So the doctor's black, but the doctor is now a black homosexual. A black gay man plays the doctor, who sings now. The doctor has never starred in a musical. He's a theatre gay now. And the BBC, in this latest release, season 14 it is, starring Mr. Gatwa, and he is from Netflix's Sex Education, and he's one of these, he's probably non-binary or something like that, right? As well as being homosexual. And it says here, and I was reading this earlier and I said, I'm not bloody well surprised. I don't want the doctor to sing at me. I don't want the doctor to suddenly be like, oh, you know, trans lives matter, because there are trans people in it now as well, right? And anyway, it says, the first two episodes from returning showrunner Russell T Davies, who seems absolutely adamant, by the way, to absolutely destroy Doctor Who. As I say, it goes back all the way from my mother's generation to my own generation. It's been in the childhoods of both of us. And it says the first episode was watched by 2.6 million viewers, while episode 2 was watched by 2.4 million. Now, it says, while these figures seem relatively low for the beloved sci-fi series and are partly justified by the mini heatwave hitting the UK at the weekend, they leave out a significant portion of the audience. I don't think it was the heatwave, mate. I think it was the fact that the BBC and Russell T Davies are basically shoving a spoonful of wackery and wokery down the mouths of those who just want to lose themselves in the realm of fantasy, in the realm of the classics that they've been brought up with. Why can you not? Like, I'm on the side of the Daleks now. I'm saying exterminate, exterminate. I want this gone. I don't want to watch this crap. Can I say, Darren, absolutely.
You know, I'm a big sci-fi fan. I love Star Wars. I used to love Lord of the Rings. I used to. Let's just put this plain. They used to. This is not just happening to Doctor Who. It's happening everywhere. I mean, the new Star Wars trailer just got more downvotes than upvotes on YouTube. I think it was exceptionally downvoted.
Oh, look, that's a drag queen, by the way. They're from RuPaul's Drag Race. I forgot to mention that. Sorry, Alex.
I mean, no, it's just such a shame because these shows used to have some significance to people who wanted to escape the reality,
Exactly.
escape daily bullshit politics, excuse my French, sorry, but they just want to get away and chill out for an hour. Instead, they're reminded that, oh, sorry, white people, white straight people, this wasn't invented for you. Well, who was it invented for then? Because that was the target audience. I
Well,
mean,
let
so
me put that.
it's
Let me put
total
that
nonsense.
to Chloe. Heather's written in, and Heather says, and that's why I stopped watching it when they start shoving that crap down my throat. I love Doctor Who, and now they've ruined it. I agree, Heather. But I have to say though, this article, by the way, the Metro wrote this piece that Alex has just mentioned, and the Metro actually deleted their Twitter account subsequently because they got such a pile on, and rightly so. But I have to have Chloe respond to this because this author is written about Doctor Who. And she says, sorry, straight white men, Doctor Who was never made just for you. Well, I'm sorry, my love. Given
and it
that
wasn't made just for you either.
The 1960s is when it was made. The 1960s was a Britain that looked vastly different from Britain today. And you didn't have people running around saying, you know, I'm gender queer and all of these other new woke fads. It's just, it's a repulsive arrogance and entitlement that says that to be a straight white man that enjoys Doctor Who is to commit a cardinal sin. Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely arrogant and ridiculous. I think it is arrogant to assume that someone who is, you know, regardless of the makeup of Britain, be it mostly white or mostly black, whatever it may be, it is absolutely disingenuous to just assume that someone who is a person of colour doesn't enjoy to watch a TV show that is entertaining, that has white actors in it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it does not matter the colour of their
Or
skin.
an audience.
I know what makes a TV show good to watch and makes it get good figures is that it's got a great storyline, it's gripping, the cinematography is great, and all of these things. Why can't the BBC go back to focusing on those things? You know, this is so upsetting for us, and I'm sure so many of the people watching this, because this was a childhood favourite for so many of us.
Oh yeah, I am upset by it. I really am.
I'm so upset. I grew up on Doctor Who. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And the
Who
BBC,
was your Doctor, Chloe?
David Tennant was the one that I always watched when I was younger. The David Tennant, Billy Piper days. And, you know, the BBC, although I know that us lot often slam them mostly for BBC News, over the years, you know, their other television shows have been absolutely fantastic, and they've made some brilliant television and been a great institution in that sense. And it's a shame to see the BBC sort of losing its amazing skills to make great television, because now they're so focused on hitting diversity targets rather than actually focusing on making great, entertaining, gripping television that everyone wants to watch.
And it's the same story.
What the colour of the skin is of the actors. Just make good telly, for God's sake.
Exactly. It's the same story with BBC comedy. You know, Wild in the Woods on YouTube has just said the same thing. We don't even have good comedy anymore. You know, what happened to the likes of Ali G and Little Britain? Well, they would simply just not be made anymore. And
Little Britain's banned, so.
But it gets us into the reason I've done this story after the National Trust story is because there's a narrative here, isn't there? There's these beloved institutions who have been captured by this DEI woke narrative, this critical race theory that says that, you know, you to be a straight white man enjoying something is really repugnant and has to be challenged at every twist and turn. Now, if you're picking up a copy of the Metro on your bus to work, on your way to work, whatever it might be, and you read an article like that, it's just it's unnecessarily divisive. And I get accused of that, Alex. But I don't write really stories like this.
Well, this is the thing. I don't understand why this big push to drive away audiences the same way the National Trust are driving away their membership exists. I mean, the Metro can write what they want, and they've obviously done it to wind up people and get clicks, because, you know, people don't read the Metro anymore. Even Londoners don't. Well, exactly, but even Londoners don't read the Metro. But I guess, you know, this is the world we live in now, and until British people stop interacting and stop engaging with newspapers like that they will go bust, because you know what the famous phrase is: go woke, go broke. And Doctor
Well,
Who,
indeed.
again, who had its lowest viewing figures ever, I think, on its first night, it just going to goes to show. And if the BBC want to keep their license and spend millions of pounds on these shows, well, they're going to have to find a new stream of income, because people are just going to switch it off.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Wooten said the BBC's incessant and infuriating wokery has killed off Doctor Who. Just 2.6 million watched the hyped debut, and it really was, by the way. They were like, we've got a Netflix star, we're changing things up, it's going to be fresh, it's going to be interesting, no whiteys, and all of these other things. Saying, even with the streaming revolution, Dan points out, that's a very clear message from fans, because they could tune in whenever they wanted. Right.
I really hope this is a message for people producing other famous British shows like James Bond, for example, where there's been lots of rumor of making James Bond woke, or woke Bond, whatever you want to call it. And look, I hope they look at the figures. And Lord of the Rings is another example. That TV show, they spent, I think, $1 billion on that on Amazon Prime. Absolutely bombed, and they've got another season coming out, and I can guarantee you, if they haven't learnt their lessons, that's going to bomb as well, if it hasn't already got rid of half their audience.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm surprised that businesses and institutions haven't woken up already. I mean, a few of them maybe
are. Well, the BBC doesn't need to.
We see that's true, but there are other institutions that are genuine businesses who actually rely on people taking interest in buying their products to make money, and they still keep falling for this. And we've had the huge Bud Light thing, we had issues with Nike, Victoria's Secret, and all sorts, all losing a load of money because of this woke crap. Yet a load of people are still continuing with it. I mean, and we had that comment earlier from one of the viewers claiming that McKinsey, the big consultancy firm, is advising businesses still. People pay McKinsey a lot of money to give them business advice. You'd think that McKinsey would lose its reputation if it doesn't pay off and make the money, but how is this stuff still continuing? I mean, hopefully soon everyone will realize that for certain this is a massive money loser and will stop doing it. I really hope so. I'm just going to
read out some of the comments, because I did promise I would. Ruggy Rug says the BBC's got an absolute audacity to think they can ram this crap down our throats and expect us to pay for it. Absolutely right. Angle says on YouTube, Tom Baker, Pertwee and Chris Eccleston, good doctors to Angle. And Slim liked Tom Baker. It's good to see you again, Slim. I didn't know you were here. And Rosalie says that Chloe takes good sense, unless you're misgendering me, Rosalie, and then there's going to be problems between you and I, Rosalie. I'm just kidding. And so they said you must have been asleep when he did his season. Is that David Tennant? Eccleston has no screen pairs. There's an argument going on about doctors in the chat. So Wild in the Wood said, I'd be okay with Chloe Bond. Well, that's a turn up for the books.
Hey,
let's do it. Let's make a film.
Absolutely.
Chloe Bond, definitely.
Right, okay, I'll move on now. Let's talk about, and this is a story that Alex was very keen to touch on, and it's the sort of story of, actually, I roll back on that. I want to do that story last, Alex, because I think it is the most important story of the day. Let's talk about this story instead. So, let's watch this video and then react off the back of it. And there's a comment on YouTube. Yes, on YouTube that I want to show after we've watched it.
A child growing up in poverty, though, Mr. Speaker, is more likely to have worse literacy, numeracy, health and job outcomes, and a shorter life expectancy than the national average. Mr. Speaker, isn't it right that the single biggest, most effective thing the government could do now is to scrap the two-child benefit cap?
So I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would gently say to the Right Honourable Lady that I'm sure she'd agree that any system has to be balanced and fair for both the taxpayer, but also for those who need it most at the point of need.
So, Suella Braverman there, obviously calling for the two-child benefit cap that was brought in under the coalition government to be scrapped. She says, there are kids that would help families more than any other benefit intervention. And I Say What I Think on YouTube said, without us having more babies, we're effed anyway. Come on, Chloe, darling. So poor Chloe
I'm
has
only
been,
23, guys. Okay,
poor
hold
Chloe
on.
has been
She's
told
only
to pop
23.
a bun in the oven. But listen, I just wanted to know what you both thought about that, because Say What I Think has a point in that we are facing a demographic time bomb, and we will start to see more arguments saying, well, we need mass migration to replace the native population because they're not having enough children. This is just going to be the cycle that goes round and round unless we do something about it. And our generation has absolutely, it seems, given up on this idea of settling down, having a family and all these other things. Has individualism ruined that? Are we at risk if we don't encourage things like that? And is Suella Braverman's proposal the right one? Because I tweeted this out and a lot of people were saying, well, hang on a minute, because if you can't afford, if you get pregnant and have multiple children and can't afford to have them, that's not my fault, right? My taxes shouldn't pay for that. But at the same time, we do need to be encouraging people to have children. And then other arguments were saying, well, this will actually massively benefit Muslim families, for example, who are having lots of children, and therefore it would disproportionately benefit certain groups within society. And is that fair? So where do you both side on it? I'll start with you, Chloe, given that you have been told to pop a bun in the oven.
I have to say I am a little bit on the fence about this.
Yes.
I don't think it's completely black and white. So obviously we've got a falling birth rate, and that is an issue, and that's perhaps something that we need to do something about. But then you say we need to encourage people to have children. The question is, who are we encouraging to have children? So I mean, where I come from, I went to an absolutely appalling school with that. We had to be put into special measures by Ofsted, and the kids at these schools, I look at them now on social media, the girls that I went to school with, I'm 23, and most of those, they're my age, they've all got multiple kids at this point. And for many of them, their career is just having a load of kids and getting a load of benefits for them. If they need more money, they just have more kids. And these I'll be honest, these mothers, these young mothers who have kids when they're like 16, 18 and just keep on popping them out, they are often kind of the worst parents to bring up kid. They're not good. These are the kind of parents that smoke while their kids in the room, who shout at their kids. They're not really an inspiration to their child to work hard and do something with their lives. And I know that might sound pretentious and in some way sort of looking down on those who don't have huge careers, but I think that it is an issue where you can just make a career out of having
children.
I don't think that that's fair on the taxpayer. I'm not sure what the best solution to this is. I think that there are sort of one thing that for me is huge is the housing crisis. Mm-hmm. So the problem, we've got whoever, what was he called? I can't read his name. Who says that I need to start popping out kids? Okay, but I can't do that until I can afford a house with multiple bedrooms. I'm going to be lucky if I make enough dosh to be able to afford a 1-bed flat. Right.
Well,
but if I want to have kids, I need, a 2-3 bed house. I need to be a millionaire. So that's definitely,
or move north. That's the solution.
I don't want to move north. Sorry. No, but also it is just income wise. It used to be the case that the man of the house can make enough money to provide for the mother to be off work and look after the kids and to pay for all the expenses for the kids and a house big enough as well. But I mean, you've got to be a millionaire to do that nowadays. So yeah, we need to grow the economy. We need incomes to go up. We need more houses. That's the long-term solution to this problem.
And fewer migrants.
And also, the feminism is a bit of an issue here, in that we've told women that having kids is not admirable. Being a mother isn't admirable. You've got to go be a CEO boss bitch, and by the time they're done with their career, their biological clock has run down. They either don't have kids or they don't have many of them. Being the best mother that you can be is just as admirable as being a CEO of a company. But feminism tells us that that's not the case. So
Yes.
that's another issue. There's a lot going on here. I mean, Alex, what do you think about this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Alex,
I've got
I'll just read out Wizard's comment, because Wizard
Mm,
says if housing was
mm,
cheaper, the birth rate would rise. This is simple macroeconomics, which is true, isn't it?
mm. Yeah. I mean, look, this is not a simple solution, and I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I was raised on child benefit. My mum had to work 2 jobs, and she still needed more money to afford me and my twin brother when she was a single mother. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am today had I not received that support. And I know when I was on GB News recently talking about benefits, my mum called me up crying afterwards because she said, "You don't realise how hard it was and how
Mm.
much I needed those benefits, and you should actually take a look at your own upbringing before you start criticising people." So I certainly don't want to
Mm.
pretend I've ever been in this situation to need it, because I haven't. What I will say though is that there are more sensible solutions. There are more sensible solutions than benefits. I.e., let's reduce the tax burden on people who have children. I think this has been
Mm.
done in Hungary or somewhere in Eastern Europe. Elon Musk met one of the premiers there, and she said, right, anyone who has over 3 children now gets a massive tax incentive. I think it's a 20% reduction of their income tax or something ridiculous. That will get people having babies. I promise you. It will also help and as you said, Darren, the real issue is here, rather than encouraging people to have children, we've imported cheap labor at the hope that GDP would rise with the population, which hasn't happened. Lo and behold, anyone who was actually surprised by that. And what we need to do is bring up people in this country, educate them, which we have a great education system compared to most third world countries, frankly, which won't last much longer with the mass immigration we've got, but is bring children up in our values, in our education system, and we'll see our GDP rise again. We also do need to say, right, maybe for the next 10, 20 years, we'll have a lower migration figure. We might even have to go into a deflationary population for a little while and build up our young people in the country and encourage people to have children. That is a very simple solution. And tax incentives are the best incentives because most
Yeah.
people in this country are at work.
I mean, I had a similar experience. You know, there were 3 of us and kids. I mean, and my mother she didn't for most of our childhood. She wasn't on her own for most of our childhood, but she might as well have been, right? Because the people that she's always had a taste for alcoholics for some reason. But so I'm not for a moment suggesting that I obviously did also benefit from the welfare state through child benefit, but also through things like tax credits to top up her income because her income was minimum wage, and also through having a council house and then buying that under right to buy. But all of these things are being taken away from people though. Like my mother had 3 kids. How could she have survived if she only got child benefit for 2 of them, right? And I would like to think that I'm sort of hopefully someone that has benefited society sort of, at least as far as the tax take is concerned, for as long as I continue to be employed, that is. And I worry that we're basically, I guess you're right in that it's not all down. It puts it in too simple terms to actually argue that this is down to the child benefit cap. This is just one of a multitude of issues, including housing, including the tax burden, including the money people have got in their pockets, including rent, housing, mass migration, putting up all the prices of everything. It's a knock-on effect. So it needs to be challenged at every branch, basically. So yeah, I think you've probably made me decide that it's too simplistic to argue that we need to get rid of the benefit cap in order to save the demographics, the population of Britain.
Yeah, and most of these benefits, by the way, are means tested, right? So what Sewell is advocating for isn't necessarily going to help working people, and what we really need to do is help the people that are in work either work less so they can raise their children and don't have to spend all this money on ridiculously expensive nurseries and childcare options, and actually help them spend more time at home. There's lots of better ways to do this. I don't agree with Sewell entirely on this. I do think we should consider means testing people with 3 or 4 children, though.
Yeah. So Heather on YouTube says, "I blame the feminists, those idiots." So yeah,
there's a really interesting guy. He does these doodles online that I'll have to share the video through Reason somehow. But he talks about how actually the feminist agenda of bringing women into the workplace has actually pushed down household income, because it said, okay, women, you need to come and work for the next 15, 20 years now to your 40s, 50s, and then you can't have children, as Chloe rightfully said. And what it's also done then is a split, because you want, then when we've got to have equal wages, it's then said, well, men can't earn more even if they're working longer, because women have to be paid the same. There's a lot of really interesting issues with the feminist agenda on gender pay as well, the gender pay gap, which many people argue isn't a real thing.
Right, okay, let's do that story that you wanted to do now then, the issue of the day. So Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, stood strong and said, we will not be accepting any migrants who've escaped to the Republic of Ireland from Northern Ireland. And the GB News says Sunak U-turns on accepting migrants as Britain takes back 50 failed asylum seekers from Ireland. So Britain has accepted 50 failed asylum seekers from Ireland, despite Rishi Sunak insisting they wouldn't. In April, the Prime Minister rejected calls to take back migrants after Ireland warned that up to 90% of asylum seekers had fled Northern Ireland amid fears of being sent to Rwanda. Official figures show that 50 illegal migrants were arrested during 2 4-day operations between October and February, when Irish police stopped buses travelling from Belfast to Dublin. So that, to be fair to the Prime Minister, is before he said in April we would not be accepting any of them. And this happened between October and February. But it does, Chloe, does it not, suggest that actually we have been a soft touch nation. We are a soft touch nation. And we aren't going to say no to anyone. Ultimately, I think actually that we will end up accepting them back, and we will end up seeing them come here and just sneak over the border. Because why wouldn't they? There's a common travel area in that on the island of Ireland, and therefore they can go wherever they damn well please.
Yeah, I mean, you say soft touch, more like out of touch is fishy.
We've had our legs in the air and might as well have got pregnant.
I mean, how bad do the polls have to get before this guy starts showing a little bit of backbone? I mean, does he not know that he's just shooting himself in the foot by doing things like this? I mean, this is like the number one, if not one of the top issues that people care about at this election. Immigration is going to be first and foremost. And you do stuff like this whilst the polls are just plummeting and plummeting. I had this hope for a long time that as we got to the general election year, that, a little bit of fear would kick in as they saw the polls and they'd start pulling their act together and start getting tough on migration. But no, they do this rubbish. And, this comes at a time when half of the people who are meant to be going to Rwanda are just on the loose, missing, and they think they're tough because they've put out a video of the Home Office detaining about 3 of the 3,000 of them that are missing, and they're like, oh, look at us. And they're like, oh, we've sent one bloke to Rwanda, who's now actually missing in Rwanda, by the way.
Who's probably back here now.
They think that they think that these little nuggets that they feed us in the news stories are going to win us over and make us think that the Tories are tough on migration and we should be scared of Starmer. I mean, you're not really giving people much to be scared of when you yourselves are scary by just allowing this invasion of the southern border to continue and continue. I mean, I've just had enough. I've had enough.
I mean, it's not even the invasion of the southern border exclusively anymore, is it? Right? It's now through using Northern Ireland as a vehicle to get to and from other nations. But the Rwanda deterrent, Alex, clearly was having an effect, to give him credit, in that there were people going to the Republic of Ireland from NI in order to actually avoid being sent to Rwanda. So it maybe that deterrent effect would have worked if actually, and now they've said it's unsafe and all these other things. In Northern Ireland, they've said it's unsafe in the High Court there. So none of this is going to actually happen. And the Prime Minister needs to actually, I think, say, in order to save his bacon, we need to leave the ECHR.
Yeah, I actually suspect he's going to try and make it a battleground for the election, which is why he seems so confident at the moment that he's not going to be booted out of 10 Downing Street. I suspect he'll say the same way David Cameron won the 2015 election by the skin of his teeth, was because he promised a referendum on the European Union, or was it 2012? I can't remember. 2010, sorry. Well, either way, he probably will use that, but he'll dangle it over our heads right at the last minute because it will be his last ditch attempt to stay in power. The reality here with this story, when I was thinking about it a little bit earlier, was that Rishi Sunak probably had no idea that 50 migrants got sent back from Ireland to Northern Ireland. He probably had no idea and was told by his advisors, yeah, come out strong on this one, Rishi. It will make you look tough on immigration. And I bet he's absolutely fuming this afternoon that he's been made to look a fool. It sounds like civil service tactics to me. This has again been leaked by the civil service because only they would be able to leak this kind of story because they have the information. Let's not forget. So this is just pure incompetence. But I think it does somewhat talk to what Liz Truss talks about with this deep state who is constantly looking to undermine anybody who's doing something that they in the civil service don't like. And they clearly don't like this policy on Rwanda. And they clearly want to undermine anyone who's enabling this policy, including the Prime Minister himself and the Home Secretary, who seems to be missing for the umpteenth week in a row now. So quite frankly, there's a bigger, deeper issue here that I think we need to start peeling back and asking the questions. Who's leaking these stories? Why didn't the Prime Minister know that 50 asylum seekers have been sent out before he makes a massive statement about not sending them back to the EU and made to look a fool? There's a lot of deeper questions to ask here, but frankly, it's showing that the government is incompetent and it's failed and it hasn't got the balls to send them back, and it probably hasn't got the balls to stand up to the EU.
Which sort of leads me neatly on to this, actually, because you're doing a great job, by the way, and you didn't even know what any of the topics were. So
I didn't even know the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And what can I say about my curation? But Rob Jenrick, who was Immigration Minister alongside Suella Braverman when she was Home Secretary, and Rob Jenrick said... he called for ministers to present annual reports of nationality, visa and asylum status of every offender who is convicted. So every foreign national who is convicted of a crime in this country, and actually give us an indication of which countries are the biggest offenders and of what crimes, what kind of crime. It makes sense, right? Lots of nations around the world do this. But Rob... Jenrick, his idea has been opposed by civil servants within the Home Office that have said, no way, Jose, do I want to work on crime tables for migrants. It'll be dehumanising. It'll be all of these watchwords of the moment, these horrible prats. Wait until you get raped in a back alley, you stupid, so-and-so. And I just sort of think... There is a real issue, is there not, with civil service impartiality and actually delivering on these things? And could this be part of the problem as well, Alex?
Yeah, this is absolutely the case. We all know it. It's like a never-ending episode of the thick of it. Not only are most civil servants a little bit wet between the ears, but they're also relatively incompetent. They constantly lose data that's highly valuable to our country. Constantly magically lose the information of these migrants. I don't trust anyone who worked in the civil service, and it needs completely dug up, chucked out, and started again with very, very strict guidelines on who can work for what department and where. In fact, this is the problem really here, Darren, is that the state has become so big that you can't withdraw these civil servants. They have so much power and they've been so locked into their jobs. It's harder to remove a civil servant than it is a sitting prime minister. It's absolutely bonkers. So we really do need an American-style system. When a prime minister or a new governing party comes in, they're allowed to bring in a ranch of new civil servants to be operating in the civil service to ensure the work is getting done, and be able to sack any civil servant who does not comply. It's as simple. In my business, that's exactly what happens. You don't like the rules, either leave or we'll get rid of you. This is how any business operates.
David says on YouTube, 2 words, dumping ground. Are we a doormat or a nation,
Yeah, I mean, Alex, you explained it very well there, the problems in the civil service. I didn't realise we had Dominic Cummings on the call. You sounded very Dominic Cummings with your comments you made there. But I mean, you're right, it does really need to be torn up. But I doubt anyone will have the political will to do so as a consequence of the civil service just not being trustworthy to get on with the job. That's why you've seen this absolutely phenomenal increase in the number of spads and private advisors that ministers will employ, because they just can't trust the civil servants to do the job for them. That there's a lot of miscommunication as well, whereby, for example, when a big job is being advertised for the civil service, the minister is supposed to help write the job spec and look over it and make sure that they're actually getting the person that they're looking for. That's often not happening. There are a load of problems in the recruitment process. I won't get into nitty-gritty detail that I could go on about that, but there are plenty of issues here. And the civil servants, I mean, we're just getting more and more evidence of their bias. I mean, they're now mounting legal challenges against the Rwanda plan, and it is no coincidence that that story came out sort of 2 days before the local elections. It clearly was an attack against the government. And I'm sorry, you're a civil servant. You're meant to be impartial. So it is really horrendous what's going on. And I think that to hide this data about criminals and where they've come from, it is absolutely disastrous. I mean, we saw what happened in Rotherham and all the other places where we had people being scared to say that these are Pakistani Muslims who are committing these crimes, which which made it much harder to deal with the issue if you're too scared to say who's done it and what the common themes are. And we've just seen, was it, I can't remember if it was on this podcast or something else that we looked at last week, the stats that have come out in, is it Germany, where they found that asylum seekers are massively 50%. More likely massively more likely to commit crimes like sexual assault and whatnot. So if it's happening there, I expect that the figures will be fairly similar here. We've had the Home Office refusing GB News's requests, FOI requests for information about the nationality of and the likelihood of asylum seekers to commit crimes, and they don't want to give it to us. I mean, they're clearly hiding something they don't want us to see.
Yeah, we haven't got very long left, so there's two stories that I want to get through, and so let's make our comments as brief as possible. But Lee Anderson has come out with this comment. I mean, not come out as homosexual. That's not an exclusive for recent UK. Lee Anderson has come out and said that Labour plans homes for Hamas if Keir Starmer wins the election. So the Express say Reform UK MP Lee Anderson has asked how long it will take for Labour to introduce a Homes for Hamas scheme should the party win power. And this comes after Sam Tarry MP, who's a Labour MP. He was at one point, I believe, shagging Angela Rayner. And someone's got to. And he said, today in Parliament, I call for the creation of a Palestinian family visa scheme. This should bring Palestinian refugees to safety in the UK through a new safe and legal route and reunite families desperate for their loved ones to reach safety. And now in this speech, he also references Ukraine. And I say to that, the Ukrainians didn't vote for Islamist terrorists who would then therefore go on to attempt to commit genocide of the Jews. And I said Labour MP wants to bring Hamas voters over to Britain. I'm sure I'm not alone in telling him where he can shove his Hamas voting refugee, right where the sun don't shine. And Jess Phillips says she's also a Labour MP, one of the gobbiest ones of the lot, and she says any Palestinian visa scheme to the UK must include provision for children orphaned in the conflict. That's children brought up by Hamas, right? Children who have only ever known life under the Hamas regime. Jess Phillips, of course, from one of the most diverse constituencies in the country, in Birmingham, Yardley, I believe it is. Yes, I am correct. And it all suggests to me that Lee Anderson may well have a point, that they are going to say we need to do for Palestine what we did for Ukraine, Chloe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a really ridiculous comparison to make, because Ukrainians are people with a very, very similar culture to us, so it's very easy to integrate them into our country. Whereas on the other hand, the Palestinian population has, as you pointed out, Darren, been very, very radicalized by Hamas. Does that mean that every single person that we could potentially bring from Palestine would be a terrorist? No, of course it doesn't. However, you really do increase the chances of having a terror attack committed, or just an increase in horrendous crimes, generally more anti-Semitism and whatnot, if you bring people who have been brought up under Hamas leadership and voted for Hamas to Britain. And as you've pointed out, Darren, in your post this week, there is a reason why countries like Egypt have many
Sky-high
walls,
borders.
sky-high borders built, is because they don't want the radicalized Palestinian population coming into their countries. We don't want them either.
Alex,
Yeah.
Adi says this started in the White House 3 weeks ago with David Miliband, who is Ed Miliband's brother, who lost out of the leadership challenge in 2010. And he says this started in the White House 3 weeks ago with David Miliband's non-governmental organisation Rescue, and he's part of one of these charities who is connected to every part of the West.
He runs the International Rescue Committee. Yeah. It's a big organization.
So
big,
they're all saying that
organization.
this is like World Economic Forum types, the Davos elite, who are saying that we need to do our bit and take in these people.
But you know what? Frankly, if there's anyone who needs to do their job, it's the Middle Eastern countries that surround Palestine, that have put up walls,
and some of them that fund Hamas as well.
A single one of them. Absolutely. And they've refused to take a single person into their country. What does that tell you about the people there? They don't want them in their own country, and they are the most likely to assimilate in the nations next door to them. So I am zero respect for anybody on Labour or any politician or charity that says we should start taking these people in. It's our duty, until the countries next door start to take them in first. It's not our duty to be the world's home, to be the world's orphanage, unfortunately. As much as we would love to be able to have the space and the hospitals and the schools to put up every person that's suffering from war, we can't. And this country.
Well, actually, I don't. To be honest, I'm going to be totally honest. I don't think that, because I don't want. I grew up in a part of the world where being a young gay lad on a council estate in County Durham wasn't a very nice experience. I don't want to bring people over here that think that actually the appropriate thing to do with someone just because they happen to fancy other blokes is to throw them off a rooftop. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like I just don't want
You're
people like that in my country, and I don't care if that makes. Someone commented today. I'll just show you, actually. Someone commented on one of the tweets that I put out, and they said the thing about right-wing grifter scene is that you have to up the ante to stay relevant. Grimes, as in me, is heading down the Katie Hopkins route, and he's too thick to realise that it'll render him unemployable. He talks about GB New making losses and things like that. But I actually don't care at this point. I think we're facing a civilizational moment. I think that we are going backwards, not progressing forwards, and I won't stand for it. So do what the hell, whatever you want. Just call me whatever you want. I'm at the end of my capacity to actually take any more of this crap, and it leads me on to what, and I believe it was Annette said on Facebook, and Annette said that she's seriously thinking about emigrating. She said it is Annette. She says, becoming so bad I'm thinking of emigrating, and I keep getting like that as well, but I don't want to think like that, because then that kind of defeatist mentality says that we do nothing about it. Chloe?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, one of the reasons why I speak up about this stuff and fight for Britain is because I don't want to have to leave. I'm a dual citizen. I've got family in nice sunny Florida, and that's where I will be if Britain goes to absolute shit and I have no choice but to leave. But I really don't want it to have to come to that. I want to be able to stay here. I mean, we'll really screw over our population demographic if all the working class right Brits leave the country and we're just left with all the immigrants.
Yes. What was it? The global majority? If we're just left with the global majority. It makes Britain sound like an airport, doesn't it? But I mean, Alex, where do you what would your message to Annette be?
Well, look, Annette, I mean, this is the reason why people like yourself are listening to this podcast, why Chloe, Darren and I talk about this very vocally on GB News, and quite frankly, people can say you'll never get a job again or you will be unemployable, then so be it. More time for us to sit and do these podcasts and spread the message, quite frankly. And I'd happily be unemployed if it meant me having to shut my mouth to please a censor-loving lefty any day. Unemploy me. I'll get onto that child benefit cap straight away and start enjoying the privileges of not having to work as well. But quite frankly, we've got to do more. We've got to do more to start talking up, because we're not doing enough, unfortunately. We've got to do more.
All right, folks. Annette just points out that she's 70 and not a youngster. So, 70 years, 70 years old, the things that you've seen change in this country, and many of them not for the better, And actually, another user, Wild in the Woods on YouTube, points out that the so-called community, the LGBT alphabet soup, are helping them do this. They're actually calling Queers for Palestine and all these other things. We are in for a world of pain, but we've got to fight through it. We've got to call this out, and I'm going to certainly continue doing that. My mother brought me up with a mantra. She said, "Darren, shy bairns get nout," and that means, for those of you that don't speak Northern, or Scottish for that matter, it means shy children get nothing, and that's very true. So, I'm not going to go away. Alex is not going to go away. Chloe is not going to go away. Reason is not going to go away. And that's why we need your support. So thank you very much to all of you at home for watching tonight. I did promise Chloe that would be away at 8 p.m. and she's got a whip in her hand, so I need to go right now. And I'll see you all Wednesday, 7 p.m. next week. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you to the two of you as well for being part of it.
See you later.